You cannot afford to miss a single moment of the next hour. Get ready to have your ideas about sexuality, love, and relationships blown wide open. It's time to get educated, entertained, and enlightened, as well as sexually empowered. You have now tuned into the Tantra Love, Sex, and Intimacy Show. Now, here's your host, Tanya Diamond.
Hello, everybody. Let me tell you how excited I am. And I know I always say that because...
How excited are you?
I'm so excited. You know why I'm excited today?
Why are you excited today?
Because it's raining.
Nice. It's cool. It's raining.
It's awesome.
Tanya walks slowly through the parking lot when it rains so she can just feel the cool.
I do. You know, everybody's scurrying around. I'm just like, oh, yes, the rain. This is so amazing. It's so fun. But you know what I have to do? There's a question I need to ask.
What
it's
question
a serious
is that?
question. I got to ask it of the men in the station, Billy here and Joshua. Does this microphone make my ass look big?
If you were to turn around, I'd have a better perspective on...
You know, that...
I plead the fifth!
You know, this is a big microphone, too.
That microphone and your ass are distinctly different.
Nice. You know, that question is just, I don't know. That question has been coming up a lot over at Team Tantra headquarters these days. It seems to be, it's all because of the book, you know?
Right.
So I'm writing the book. I'm finishing up my first in-print book. Now, I write ebooks, no problem. It's all great. And here I am writing the book, my first, the book. Like my CFO keeps telling me, Tanya, it's one of many books. Oh yes, okay, that helps. That is better. But then I had to say, you know, as I'm writing this and I'm freaking out for some reason, I've only got 2 weeks to go. I had to ask, does this book make my butt look big? And Joshua said to me, well, you know, if you take 2 books and you put them both in your back pockets.
Right. Then your butt will look square and pretty damn big.
Right, exactly.
Unless, of course, you're sitting on a pile of books.
No, these are
In
hard
which case,
copy
in proportion, it would look small.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, these are the kind of really spiritual questions, deep conscious changing
Deep
questions
thinking.
that we ask each other. What did you write on your cup?
Well, the other side to that joke, you know, the ladies can't have all their fun asking, you know, what makes their ass look big. So
Right.
as guys, we try to do our best to say things like, does this microphone make my vajra look small or big? So on my cup, I wrote, does this cup make my vajra look small? I guess I could say big, or, you know, but the cup's, never mind.
So, yeah, obviously we're in quite funny moods today with the stress of it all, the book. What do we want to talk about today, Josh? What do you think people want to hear about?
Well, one of the topics that was just on my mind earlier today is when we meet people, when we date people, how forward should we be with our questions and our inquiry? Because going on a first date, you're trying to impress each other, trying to size each other up, trying to be polite, nice, edgy, funny, but the hard questions don't get asked. In fact, I find they don't get asked until the first argument.
Oh, and that could be like way into the dating.
That could be way
thing.
too late.
Is that because people are not really solid? I mean, I'm going to use the word desperate maybe, desperate for a relationship or for engagement in type of physical or mental relationship that they're compromising their values?
I think they're compromising their values, and they have like a wait and see perspective. So it's all this suspenseful waiting game. Which, hey, I love the suspense and nuance and allure and arousal of a first, second, what have you, beginning of a relationship. However, there's that aspect of what's our intent? What are we doing here?
Right. Yeah, people don't do that. They just kind of date and maybe they just fall into bed or whatever it is. And I think men more intentful. Do you suppose?
Yeah, they usually want to directly fall into bed, but
right.
Is that what you meant?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Men are more intentful on why they're there or why they're showing up.
Men are very intentful on they want to connect. They want to get a clear sense of where they stand in the woman's eyes, and depending on the stage of life that man's in, it's can I get sex?
Well, I mean, and is he looking for sex just for the sex, or does he need the sex to determine whether or not he wants anything more in the relationship?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
I mean, how many men want to know what the sex is like as their statement versus, they want to be having sex. They don't want to wait. And as soon as we start feeling arousal, it's gotta happen as sex, because if we don't have sex, we're moving on to the next relationship because we better get sex.
So you're saying that most men are not dating thinking, okay, coming to on a date, well, I'm interested in having a long-term relationship. I want to have a family one day, blah, blah, blah. They're not asking that. They need to know about the sex first.
I think a lot of men
Billy's saying
are
yes.
thinking about the sex first, and they're not really thinking about, I want to have a marriage and a relationship. I mean, for the men who are saying, I'm looking for a mate, I think they're much more direct of what they're looking for and say it up front.
Really? What do you think, Billy?
I think Josh is completely right on this one. I think it's just, guys are going in there looking for, okay, I want sex on this date. And the girls are looking for something a little bit more deep, but there's the stalemate right there, Guys aren't going to go ahead and sign up for something long-term unless they know that, okay, well, the sex is good here, so this is going to be great.
Right. And then what about that, whatever happens to the, oral sex after you're in a relationship? Remember? Because, men complain about this all the time. Oh, in the beginning, it was all great. There was sex all the time, oral sex. And then, where did it go?
It just stops.
Right. What's up with, so how is it that you think sex is a reliable indicator?
It's a broken contract. I'm not taking the trash out until I get some. Did I just reveal too much about myself?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. The things that we experience with each other in courtship are in a sense like a contract. It's leading an illusion of who we really are in that romantic honeymoon phase of getting to know each other. And that's the understanding that causes us to go ahead and get to know the person better, spend more time with them, eventually move in. And again, in that arousal and eros and excitement of knowing each other, again, the hard questions oftentimes don't come up onto the table.
They don't even come up when people are engaged and getting married. I mean,
Usually,
there's
no.
people that talk about, here's a basic question. How often do you want to have sex? In your perfect world, in a relationship, how often would you want to be making love?
Well, in my perfect relationship, there's an ebb and flow of energy. It varies. I could find myself, once or twice a day. And at the same time, as I'm learning how to move my energy, I'm okay if a week goes by because of schedules, energy, traveling. I'm not going to freak out.
I am.
Okay.
A week?
So,
what are we talking about here?
A couple times a week is great. And the interesting thing that I found is as I've lowered my need, my desperation, and just arrive to serve and be in gratitude, I'm finding that my lover is available or wanting or receptive to sharing intimacy because there's no goal or agenda.
Right. Well, you're not in the hounding. I mean, the women are complicated.
Really?
Can I really say that?
Can you say it again?
We are complicated because we want to be a sex object. So, maybe not. Maybe I'm the only woman on the planet that wants to be revered as a sex object. Okay. So anyway, I want to be a sex object, and yet if men treat them like sex, I've seen that this is where it doesn't work for me because I want to be a sex object. It's great when men treat me like a sex object, but that said, most women don't feel that way. A lot of women get upset. They want to be attractive and they want to be adored and they want men to be aroused by them, and then yet...
But don't look at me as a sex object.
Right, and then, why does he want sex all the time?
Well, because you attracted someone based on...
Right. So that basic question about how often have sex...
But wait.
What?
But wait.
But wait.
How many guys in the beginning are so helpful... So opening doors, so buying dinner, so repairing things, fixing the car,
rubbing my feet,
all that kind of stuff. Seeming like a provider, perfect mate, knight in shining armor.
And then they just
guy who takes out the trash without complaining.
And then in month 3, they kick back, pop the top on the beer, and start watching sports.
Woman, can you get me a pot pie?
Exactly. Where's my pot pie? Where's my hungry man meal?
Yeah. So okay. So there's how we sell. We do our best to be funny, gregarious, generous in courtship, and then both men and women pull their loss leader contract off the table.
I now have you. She starts wearing the flannel PJs.
That never worked for me. I still...
You don't care. It looks good to me.
Flannel PJs are like, soft, fuzzy wrapping on a delicious present.
Right, it all comes off anyway. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, there he's like that. So, I mean, the hard questions, some of the questions to ask, for women that are waiting to have children and they're dating in their late 30s, does this water elevate my sexy? He's got great things all over his cup, sorry. Women waiting later to have children and then they're dating, and I think that's one of those things that if you're dating, you need to be pretty upfront with. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if the man freaks out because you say, hey, I just want to let you know that, I have a goal of getting married and having children or having a child, I think that's kind of important to know.
Right. And then asking, oh, yeah, that's cool with me. No, asking pointed questions and really finding out where they are, which becomes a dialogue.
But then, can men take that? Will they freak out? And it's like, well, no, I don't, it's like, I don't know. We haven't had sex yet. So here's would be a great. Let's have the conversation. So it's like Joshua, I'm having a great time on this date, and I just really, there's some real things I need to let you know because they're really important to me.
Okay.
One, I do desire to get married and have children. This is part of my life plan, and I am in my late 30s.
Okay.
That's why I'm not, but I think that's pretty important.
Do you have a time frame? Is this an ASAP thing, or is this I'm gonna work the field and see what frogs jump out of the swamp?
Well, I'm very much tracking to find the right mate because there is a timing issue on this.
Okay.
So it is kind of an interview in that sense. I mean, if you don't see children in your future,
children aren't really what I'm building right now.
Right. So that's cool, and you're cool and all, but.
Are you interested in dating and getting to know each other better while you look, or is it hey, thanks for the date, next time? Are you?
That's a great question, because you are kind of cute and stuff, and you're funny. So I guess I could.
Do you want to hang out?
I could use you while I'm looking for other people.
That's an option. I gotta admit, I'm a guy, and I love playing in the realm with femininity, with the attraction and the body of the goddess.
So there you go. So there's a great way for two people to have a pretty open dialogue.
Can someone send me an email of what I just said?
Yeah, that was good. And that was a great question that he asked. I put that out there, and then you asked me basically, what's your time frame, or what does that look like, or can you date while you're looking? That was awesome. And instead of most men like, I'm
not looking for that. No, we're going to split dinner, right?
Yeah, exactly. Are we splitting dinner? Does that mean we're not having sex after dinner right now? When, and maybe a man. I mean, there are men that are looking
and
start a family.
And one of the things, men, at the end of the date, middle of the date, beginning of the date, do I pay for it all myself, or do I...
I know, you're always worried about that question.
That aspect. And part of the concern about that question is at the end of the day, if the man says, oh, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it, because of chivalry and all kinds of BS like that.
That's not BS.
It's meaningful unless the guy, when he leaves, walks out the door and is like, you be I'm not, and resents the fact that he picked up the other half of the tab, even though he volunteered it enthusiastically.
That's uncool.
I think it's much more common than is thought.
Maybe so, and that's uncool. I want to go back to the harder questions. What are some of the other questions that people need to be? I mean, the kid married thing is a huge thing.
Kid married thing is a huge thing.
And maybe and I think that's one of those things on the first or second date. How about whether or not you're polyamorous or not?
That's an important thing to put in the first date.
Yeah, you got personal knowledge with this, right?
That's a tough aspect.
Should we even wait for the first date?
Knowing what I know now. It's important, if I'm just dating and I'm not being exclusive, to say that on my Match.com or on my online profiles.
Right.
To say I'm dating right now and I'm not looking for an exclusive relationship.
But don't all men kind of say that? I mean, what does that really? That's very different than really I'm dating I'm
looking to have sex.
Okay. So
now and then
where's that category? Looking to only have sex.
Looking to only have sex and hang out followed by sex.
Right.
And then the other aspect of polyamorous, there's not a place on Match.com to say, what I'm looking for is a polyamorous
open relationship. But that kind of needs to be out there before the first date.
It does.
Really? It's got to be in that first email or whatever. And by the way, when I say that I'm not exclusive and I'm just dating, and yeah, we're all saying that.
I really mean it.
What I really mean that is even if I love you and even if we get together, that I still could have other partners because I'm wanting an open relationship. That's scary though, right? Because
it's very scary.
Curtails a lot of...
Especially, for me, coming out of a long-term relationship and having wearing a fair amount of desperation on my shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one of those things. What are other things that need to be said? Billy, what do you think? What's a question that needs to be out there in the first few dates, do you think?
First few dates?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I mean, what would
that's
you
when
do?
Everything really gets talked about,
Does it really?
I think so. Well, none of the big topics,
right?
But all of the little stuff.
All the little stuff that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Questions like, do you mind if I smoke cigars in my underwear on Sunday afternoon?
Does that get talked about?
That doesn't get talked about.
I mean,
no, but cigars while you're drinking because a lot of people don't like. It's all the small stuff.
Right. But the big stuff. What would happen if somebody sat down across from you and said, "Yeah, I want to get married and have kids one day"? What do you think about that?
First date would blow me out of the water.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because on a first date, that's not anything. I mean, I'm glad that they're being open and honest, and that's all I can look for in a person. But
right.
On a first date, hey, that's great and everything, but let's go ahead and see if we even get to a second date before we start worrying about marriage or anything like that.
What, the sex of the second date's okay?
Give me a month.
a month?
Give me a month.
Oh, that's way too long
late
for
then,
most
because
women,
if you're enamored, and I don't know if I would say falling in love, Billy, but if you're enamored and looking to get some, you're excited, you've gotten to know this person well enough, and you're looking to move it into a physical relationship if it hasn't already gotten there already, and then she says, I'm really looking for marriage. You're telling me you're not going to freak out at that moment?
If you're not?
You've gotten to like each other, you may have gotten into bed, and now she's talking about marriage a
and
month
kids.
into it. You're like, she's a freak. No,
probably.
She was just waiting for your 1 month quota.
Right.
Yeah. It would still probably blow me out
So
of the
would you
water.
rather have it at day one?
Day 2, day 1, or month into it?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I would want to see it on day 1, but that I can tell you right now that would blow me out of the water, and I would say we aren't going to see date 2. I'm going to try and see if I can get your pants off date 1, and then that will be the end of it.
Well, see now why? Because you don't know. What are you going to get married one day and have kids?
I don't. Honestly, I really don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
All right.
I don't know if I.
Then you would probably say to somebody, you know what? I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I can tell you quite honestly that, geez, that's such a long time in my future. It's really far away. So if that's something that's really close in your future, it's not close in mine, even if you were the perfect person. And then you guys could define what you want to do from there. And then you'd ask that question. So in the meantime...
You want to get some?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You want to go back to my place, or are you just waiting for the perfect person?
I think, yeah, and I'm still at 23 years of age.
Yeah.
The whole marriage thing still just blows my mind.
Right.
That seems like forever that you're with one person.
It is forever.
I just...
60 or 70 years, yeah.
That's
and
what forever means.
I'd love to share that love with someone. Right now I see it nowhere, so it's just kind of hard for me to get a grasp of it.
Now, do you think men wait until they fall in love? And I mean, it's like, so they're going with somebody for a while, and then all of a sudden it occurs to them, because this is what generally happens. Men will date somebody for a long time and think they're not interested in marriage. They'll live with them, they'll whatever, and the woman will push, because after a year or so, if a woman's with you, she's probably interested in doing something more if she's the marrying kind. And push, ultimatum, whatever, then they break up, and the man marries the very next woman that he goes out with. This happens all the time. This happens all the time.
I think they realized on a couple of levels. One, they really enjoyed the companionship, the consistency, the camaraderie. I don't know if that's the right term for a relationship, but there's a lot of depth to the experience, and once it's gone, they experience the lack.
Right.
And the things that they didn't say that they wanted to refine about their choice in a partner, I think they consciously or subconsciously put that up on the screen, so the next person that they get into a relationship, hopefully if they're thinking straight, they've put a little more thought into it, and they've refined their selection process, so the next person has many of the qualities of who they just broke up with, and maybe some things that they had realized were important to them.
I think that's interesting. I mean, women tend to not do that. I mean, they break that. That's not what they do, but men definitely do that, and it
maybe
is
on a deep existential level. the woman was just holding place for him, keeping him warmed up, and the next one was,
I don't know. I think maybe that those thoughts were in their head, and then all of a sudden, like, maybe I could do that. So the tough questions, back to those. I mean, I don't know. Do you like oral sex? I mean,
Can you ask that on a first date?
Well, why not? Because, okay, so let's say do people not know what their deal breakers are? I mean, because there are deal breakers. We all have some deal breakers, and I don't understand why we are so shy or whatever to talk about that. I have asked that on a first date.
Okay.
It's quite interesting when I've asked all of these questions, whether I was, I wasn't interested in getting married and having a child, but I came with that question.
With those men, how many of them, I almost think that the women lead the gateways on a lot of conversations in a date. The men,
right.
I've held.
But why
waiting.
Why aren't men asking the question? Because they don't want to blow it getting laid?
I think that's a lot to do
Billy
with
says
it.
that's
They
true.
watch and they throttle or brake, depending on the signs they're getting from the date. So how did the men? I mean, they must have been like, "Yeehaw, she's asking the question."
Right. Well, usually the eyebrows went up, and it's like, well, yeah, well, yes, and I'm like, that's excellent, thanks, I apprate that information.
Right. And how many of them hesitated to say what they wanted to receive because they were afraid, well, how does she want me to answer?
I know, it's funny watching the exchange. Well, the other question I was asked is, have you ever paid for sex?
Right.
That's always a great question.
That's a great opener.
Billy's like, oh,
how many people said yes?
Oh my God. There have been a few. I mean, probably, I've dated that in the thousands, I think, but there were quite a number of men that looked at me and cracked these big grins and said, well, okay, yes. And I'm like, good for you. There's the honesty quotient right there. That is creating intimacy in a moment right there. But part of it was just me going out dating and asking. When I'm doing these, when I was out doing my practice, right?
Your dating research.
Yeah, my dating research, saying that my life is so hard. Dating research was seeing what kind of questions can you just throw out there, and like, so my question was, do you like your mother? Do you like your dad? How's your family relationship? And they're looking at me like, what? And I said, this is an interview. I mean, what is a date?
Right, it's an interview. Whether
come on.
An interview for a second date, an interview for the bedroom, an interview for a relationship.
Whatever, it's all really an interview.
I
and
like
people
that approach.
Are so like,
let's make a workbook.
The interview. Well, I think there are some dating coaches out there that define that. But
how to transform your date into an interview.
But really romantic, isn't it? But to know what your qualifications are ahead of time is pretty, and that, if you're dating just for fun, then that has to be there too. I'm dating, I'm having a great time, I'm going to be dating lots of different people, and you may be one of those people that I date more than once or whatever, or I'm dating with a specific looking in mind for a relationship, though I'm not looking to get married, I'd like to have a primary relationship, or I'm looking, whatever. Why are we so scared to claim what we want? See, there is no answer. Nobody's answering me here.
I think in the date itself, it's for fear of it not matching what she wants, and you might not get a second date. So if I like how she
Billy
looks,
says yes.
if I like how she looks, if I feel that initial, I want to know this person better.
You want to know the person better, or you want to sleep with the person?
Well, yes.
Well. Yes.
Both of which.
For guys being as visual and primal as we
Come
are.
on, women
and
are visual and
functioning
primal too. Don't give me that.
Yeah, but they don't jump across the table and
Really?
grab a handful.
Really?
Well, a few of them do.
Yeah.
On the first date? Okay.
Yeah, well, we know what happens to women that do that on the first date.
Right,
They might get sex, but they don't generally get the second date. Unless they're really, really good.
Well, and I like the interview concept, because how many things in intimacy are called job? The hand job.
Oh.
The other jobs. The job. There are certain things.
That's funny, John.
That I just thought, hey, this is kind of a job.
I don't think it's supposed to be that. But asking the hard questions might even be like, what's your spiritual practice? I mean, so we've been joking around. We've been talking about children, kids, sex, that type of thing. But what happens if somebody's idea of sex is, sex isn't that important to me?
Whoa.
Well, there's 58% of women that would rather go shopping.
That's because they haven't had good sex. And they haven't had their divine feminine awakened.
That might be true. So
And-
then you
and
might.
So yeah, and still, either way, they're not interested in it.
They may not be. And so what if everybody were to be completely honest? What would happen if people were dating in honesty? Billy, what would happen?
I asked someone once.
I think half the relationships wouldn't last.
If
Right.
people
Well,
were
isn't that probably
completely honest?
good?
Yeah. I think everyone lies to each other so much to make, their partner,
Well,
feel
no.
the way that they want to, or,
If tomorrow the existing relationships were suddenly like,
Honest, yeah.
liar, liar, all of a sudden they can't lie. They can't lie anymore. They're telling the truth. Yes, I agree with you. Most of the relationships would suddenly
That'd be like
dissolve.
3/4 or 9/8 or what? What's 9/8?
But if people getting into relationships,
9/10.
if people getting into relationships suddenly became directly honest,
What would that look like? So I, sit across from you and say, "Hey, Joshua, you're funny and stuff like that.
Thank you,
Got
thank
great
you.
lips. I could
Thank
probably
you.
see, fooling around with you, but what's your spiritual practice like? What's your money situation?"
ooh, those are direct. What's your relationship with money?
Yeah, exactly. It's like I say, how often do you like to have sex, and what's your money situation? What's it look like? And how would you provide for me? I mean, what is your idea of stepping up as a man?
Okay,
Jeez, okay, those are some big
those
questions.
are some direct questions.
What would you do with all that?
You'd have to. I would first say, okay, providing for you. That's an interesting way of phrasing that. So, what are you looking for a relationship? Are you looking for a provider? Are you looking to maintain a career? Or are you looking to take care of kids in the home?
Right. Would this be important information?
Critically important information.
Well, but most people don't talk about that until they're engaged or maybe even married.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, but honey, I want to stay home with the kids.
Yeah. Or some men want the woman to stay home with the kids.
Right.
And she wants a career.
Right, exactly. So I thought you were going to quit work when we had children.
Oh, did we ever talk about that?
No. And how many kids do you want? And what happens if we can't have them?
A lot of people do talk about how many kids they want.
Huh.
At some point.
At some point, yeah.
Like after the second.
After the second child. So we have another one? We are going to take a break here and let you, concentrate on some of these questions that maybe you should have asked. And, if you have a question that you just need to send to us because, just send it or call in or something like that. Is there anybody out there that wants to call in? Call in at 1-877-230-3062. That's 877-230-3062. And we will be back in just a moment.
Is your sex life non-existent? Do sexual dysfunctions leave you soft? Is internet porn getting more than you are? Or are you paying more attention to porn than your partner? Have you tried talk therapy and it got you nowhere? You are not alone. You can be freed from sexual shame, guilt, and dissatisfaction. A visit to the Tantra teacher is in order. Call now and mention you heard the Tantra teacher on the radio and get a very special offer. Stop waiting for a miracle and call right now. 206-276-2735. Phone consultations or in person will get you the information you need to be successful in your love life. But you have to call now. 206-276-2735. Stop making excuses. Call the Tantra teacher. 206-276-2735.
Are you one of the 40 million sexless couples in the U.S.? Are you wondering why having sex leaves you feeling lonely? Are you suffering from the myths of sexual dysfunction? Do you know in your heart that there has to be more than what you're currently getting out of making love? To rid yourself of sexual ignorance, get more out of your lovemaking, and find out more about spiritual sexual connection, then you need to check out www.thetantrateacher.com to receive your free copy of the ebook called Secrets of the Tantra Teacher. Don't suffer another minute without the sexual loving and ecstatic bliss you were born to receive. Get to www.thetantrateacher.com right now. That's www.thetantrateacher.com.
I was listening to my ads
Yeah.
that I wrote, and it's like, oh, don't you want that bliss, la la la. And I'm like, yes, yes. And Josh reminds me, oh, wait a minute,
You are the Tantra teacher?
You are the Tantra teacher.
You'd be calling yourself, so you'd have to call me and I'd coach you through it.
Okay. Excellent.
Something.
You're going to call me and coach me through my own.
And I was mocking our own ads, I confess. Does your mate not wake you up in the middle of the night?
That's right.
Tickling and caressing your body, bringing you to high arousal even before you've woken up?
If he isn't called the Tantra teacher.
Yes.
Exactly.
Have him call the Tantra teacher.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it for you. Just so you know. We were talking about dating and asking all the hard questions, and why when I work with couples that by the time couples come to me for work, they are in really
they
bad.
are at the end of the dock.
They are. They've already done talk therapy and blah blah blah, and haven't had sex for years maybe or whatever. I mean, it's usually pretty dire. I tell the story of the man who had his bags packed at the door when I walked in. I had 8 hours. He said, "You have 8 hours. If you can't change something here, I'm leaving when you do." That's.
Was he asking for a ride?
I don't think so. But
Okay,
I'm leaving with you.
Right.
You're the Tantra teacher, right? I'm going home with you. No, but I think it was one of the. It's just there's such a breaking point by the time they finally get to me, which is sad. I wish people would contact me sooner.
Right.
When things like a great wedding gift. What is the best wedding gift you could ever give to a couple? Hello. 3-hour session with me.
Teacher.
Right. A 3-hour session with me.
Or a class.
Get them on track, whatever. Send them to my couples intimacy. That's a great. In fact, one of that we did have a honeymooning couple there at the last one I did. That was great. Yeah. These are things you just can't say, wow, yeah, our sex is good. Because if it's just good, it could be better.
It's not sex.
Right. It could be better. And so getting that information. And it always astounds me when I go and work with couples, the things that they haven't talked about.
Things they haven't talked about.
I'm telling you, no, I mean, really, 24 years married, and neither one of them had asked the question, how often do you actually want to have sex?
That's important and frightening.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things where she was making the assumption that, he wanted to have sex every day, and she just was daunted by that.
Well, afraid and closed down because of her anxiety about having to do that.
Right. And feeling guilty because she just didn't have that sex drive.
Which brought her arousal down even more.
Right, exactly. Guilt brings your arousal down. Yeah, exactly. So she was feeling guilty and worried and concerned because, of course, she felt like he thought a lot less of her, and it was this vicious cycle. And he thought that she didn't think he was a good lover because she didn't ever seem interested in initiating sex.
And so becoming desperate and always hounding her for sex.
Right. And so then, I just asked the simple question. It's like, so how often do you want to have sex? And he goes, I'd really be happy with, sex once a week if she was interested in it. So in other words, I'm just not initiating it and she's complying.
And not knowing when it's going to happen causes that asking all the time.
Right. And she goes, what? I mean, it was like the profound experience that, 24 years and 15 of it not having great sex life. That question had never come up. Yeah, it's amazing. So if you're out there and
at that point, she might have been like, I want it more than once a week.
Well, she was
and
like,
all of a sudden,
okay.
She's on the requesting end.
Right. She was pretty stunned. And, his whole thing was, I just want to know that you enjoy having sex with me. And she's like, well, you're a great lover. And he's like, what?
Really?
You've never told me that. Well, I mean, I'm like,
God.
wow, my job is really cool, isn't it? Yeah, it's like I'm sitting there going, oh, okay. So if you're out there and we're talking about asking the hard questions, it's not just ask the hard questions, on the first date, but all through the relationship. State of the Union meeting, right?
Yeah.
How are you happy? How
Once
are
a
things
year?
going?
Are you
what
still
are you
wanting
doing?
it as often as you're getting it?
I don't know, right? Yeah. Ask the questions. Why are they so hard to ask?
Some strange upside down vulnerability equation.
Yeah.
Revealing ourselves, being afraid about rejection or hurting the other. I mean, I don't know how you could hurt someone by asking that question, though how many couples
we all living
don't?
in fantasy? I mean, we all are, excuse me, just time...
survival, I think, more than fantasy.
Survival. So where does Tantra come in and all that? How do we use the vehicle of Tantra to make these changes in society?
Well, I think anyone living their life more fully, embracing the things that bring them interest, excitement, arousal, passion in their life. So, what people met in college or people met somewhere after college, and what were we into? Who played instruments? Who played sports?
Well, who
was engaged in activities and hobbies and interests that had them feeling alive and vibrant.
So do we give those up? That's what happens,
Absolutely.
right? So
we get too busy,
you get into a relationship,
career, kids, etc. And the things that were so attractive go to the wayside. I mean, for me even, I was dancing salsa quite a bit, and then as I've gotten into relationships, found myself not having the time or energy to drive out to Seattle and go dancing.
Because you had two.
Well, okay.
Having two doesn't leave you a lot of time.
Right. And a job and homework as a member of the team.
Right.
So that was an amazing discovery in terms of, is it possible or is it sane to have more than one committed relationship?
Well, and that was it, right? Two committed relationship versus just one primary relationship with satellite relationships, or I don't know what. Yeah.
I think I need to go to some polyamory meetings.
There you go. Figure out how they do that all.
How do you do that?
But it is true that the things that give us passion and fuel us, it shouldn't just be the person we're with. I mean, if so you're like, well, but I'm passionate about this person and I love this person and this is great.
They can't be your goal, your mission, and what fuels you.
Right.
They can be inspiring to you and alluring and attractive on many levels. But if they're your inspiration,
your only inspiration,
then you're not learning how to bring life force through your own being.
Right. So this is about self first. And I tell people all the time when people email me and say, I don't have a Tantra partner, I don't have a partner, I can't practice Tantra. Tantra is a solo practice to start. I mean, and it can be a solo practice because there is a path of Tantra that includes celibacy.
Right.
And people are shocked to find that out, that actually the right-handed path of one of the schools of Tantra is no alcohol, no meat, no substances, and no sex. It's celibacy.
Are you using a partner?
No.
Not even a partner.
Right.
So you're doing all the breathing
and
all the exercises. And
it's a solo practice to spirituality. And they're not, in some of those, they're not even using sexual arousal. I mean, they're talking celibacy at the degree that most people don't even consider know what celibacy is.
I mean, in parallel perhaps to moving to a Zen monastery and engaging yourself in mindful living.
Right, exactly. So Tantra is not just about sex. Obviously, it's not just about sex at all, but that's what everybody thinks. Some of these questions, like I'm looking right here on my email, isn't Tantra just sex positions? No, that's the Kama Sutra. And the Kama Sutra is more than just positions.
Well,
it is kind of the Bible of sex, but it's not Tantra.
And it doesn't really teach, because if you don't know how to get into trance, the sex positions do nothing for you, other than maybe pull a muscle.
Yeah, exactly. I've had those questions. Help, can you?
The peach tree, the branches broke. Splinters hit me on the head. It was really awkward, especially with the neighbors pulling on the branch for me.
I know. What is going on there?
You know what picture I'm talking about.
The peach tree. Yeah, exactly. The peach tree picture.
Right.
And so the Tantra bringing that ability for full life arousal, full living in a space of, I like to say it as full human potential. I mean, Tantra is the vehicle for experiencing full human potential.
And it's not just about experiencing the aspects of life that are arousing. It's learning how to move that arousal. So for men, we get aroused. We feel a burden or buildup of energy in our first and second chakra, essentially our genitals. And then we have to work that out sexually or aggressively. So guys get too much testosterone going. They've got to F or they've got to fight. They've got to have sex or they've got to fight.
Right.
Sometimes both. And learning, I think the other side of Tantra, living life in arousal or to cultivate arousal, and then learning how to move it so that we can actually experience other aspects of our body mind feeling alive.
Well, and that sexual energy is a very potent form of energy, and it's usually used in Tantra as the vehicle to get the rest of the body on board. Because people are motivated by it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's motivating.
It's a motivating factor. It's something that people are like, oh yeah, I can be on board for that.
I never went and bought my school books quite so enthusiastically.
As you are now with Team Tantra, learning all that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the motivating factor, is that sexual energy, using it, but using the potency of it to transform the rest of your experience is utmost important. What has to do with breath work. And I'm back to that. People are like, oh my God, that breathing thing.
Do I have to breathe?
It's so not sexy.
If you don't want to.
Right, exactly. You don't have to breathe, and that means you don't have to live in your full human potential either.
And the breath is part of what makes such a difference. I've got to address my breathing homework more.
Yes.
Yes.
More breathing homework.
More breathing homework. More eye gazing. More sitting and working on the heart centered energy.
Yes, so you run a lot of second chakra energy.
I run a lot of second chakra energy, and
that means he's turned on all the time.
A lot. And I've in the different spiritual studies and personal growth experiences that I've done, I've exercised getting more of my body and centers working or opened, and just in the last chapters of my life, of the last month or year, I've been, even in a higher intellectual way, still been emerging from my second chakra.
Do we think, somebody brought up on my team that our chakras have ages? Like I was referring to somebody I know that's that's a 17-year-old in a sexual mentality, not you, and sorry,
I know who you're talking about,
and in that 17-year-old space in his sexuality when he's in his late 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And what's up with that? So do our chakras do we get stuck, do you think? And our chakras
sure.
get stuck in ages?
In our wounds and perceptions, we get stuck in ages.
So, wow. And then I thought, well, if we ask our team, what ages are their chakras? That could be, what age do you think your second chakra is?
My second chakra. Wow. That's a tough call.
I know.
19.
19?
19.
About 19.
At the same time, there's that sense of a certain level of, learning how to walk into a room and be independent from needing people's approval makes you more attractive when you walk into the room.
Right.
So walking in confidence, walking in with the intent of, if I'm going out to the dance floor and I'm just going to dance, I don't know, is that bringing myself up out of second chakra, or is that a more mature second chakra?
Well, see, and there's, I think, a huge question. I think a lot of people are thinking that you're just taking the 19-year-old and just running it through your body, and, once you hit the heart energy, then everything's okay. But what about maturity to the chakras? I mean, I think that's a big thing, and I think that's got to be looked at. I think there is evolving. Your chakras do need it. It's not this open and closed.
What does that look like? I'm trying to get a sense of your, not a concrete thing, but a 19-year-old chakra would be in that, I gotta get some.
Right, exactly. Whereas in a matured space was like, I feel my sexual energy, I own my sexual energy, I am in arousal, and I have intent. It is not ruling my life.
So you think, on that, I would say a lot of men in our society are in that puberty and late teens forever.
Probably. Yeah, exactly. And then there's that grief, that huge grief that comes when they can no longer perform like a teenager, right? Because they're still maintaining that image.
Well, the other aspect, I mean, in mass society, is that they're not doing ejaculation mastery,
right?
And that's a whole different realm in reality. I mean, to know that you don't need to be a porn star pumping away. Not realizing that in those films they have tag team and stand-ins, but also realizing that if someone is, in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s and getting exhausted and finding, I can't keep my erection, well, that's because you're ejaculating and then hoping you can climb back up on the horse.
Or your body is out of shape.
Right.
And it gets exhausted
and the
doing
beer
sex
and the
the way you're doing. The beer and the Twinkies. They're not promoting good health.
No.
But but women, let's talk about women too. I'm sure women have age, the chakras are, as well. If you get sexually wounded at an early age, do you, okay, let's take this for instance. Let's say that somebody's wounded in, when they're like 6 or 7 or something. Mm-hmm. Do they bring cutie girl to the bedroom?
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean? So then you have this girl that, we saw one at
passivity.
We saw one at karaoke. When we were there last. Remember I was talking about there's that really cute girl and she's doing this kind of like, oh, Lucy,
cute. Kept doing this cutie, shrugging the shoulders and the side looks and that preschool girl seduction thing.
Right. And so, that's got to be, staying in her second chakra in that way. So that maturity level there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What does a woman whose second chakra is mature look like? A woman who owns her sexuality, who's not afraid to say what she needs, when she needs it, and isn't devastated if there isn't, the result.
Right.
So there's not that desperation.
And their self-worth isn't based on just the results.
Right.
If a man loses his erection, the world, what happens to a woman's self-esteem? Aside from what's happening to his.
Well, most of the time it's pretty tragic.
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh, you must not be attracted to me.
Right. And then, of course, if he comes too soon, that's its own problem.
Well, that was you were too attracted to me.
Right. Don't look at me. I can't
Stop
help it.
looking at me. Stop moving.
I'm too sexy for my man.
I like that. Does this cup make me look sexy, by the way?
Yes.
So I think that, contemplating the maturities of our chakras. Well, what about our heart chakra that is wounded by abandonment in our family?
It stays in that abandonment. I think the chakras can even regress. So if a person has a wounding as a teen or as a woman in her 20s, that there can be a regression because, in puberty, there's a drive to your body is surging with new hormones that say, explore me. Mm-hmm. And there's an adventure, there's peers that are also learning and exploring. And so a certain amount of self-knowledge can be gained. And then if there's a wound, an accident, an abuse, what have you, then there can be regression. That's where sexual healing comes into play.
Right, which we do at learningtantra.com. Mm-hmm. Help people through their sexual wounding. I think so. I've understood or heard people talk about blocks, energy blocks, and that type of thing. And we use that too when we teach, talking about blocked energy being stuck in places. And I think assessing. I do believe that making some of these assessments, perhaps about the maturity level or the age of some chakras, might be helpful as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think we should contemplate how that looks. I think it's really interesting. And then again, by that same token, I think that if you go to your headspace and you spend a lot of time contemplating all these things, but not actually doing anything, that's not a good thing.
You have to go to that chakra. You have to get in your body. You have to work it.
So ask. Maybe we could come up with a list of questions to ask your chakra.
All right.
How about that?
I'm with you there.
List of questions to ask your chakra. So you go into a little bit of a meditative state. Mm-hmm. You feel that experience, like, finding your heart chakra, you would feel great love. Mm-hmm. Go to a place where you've just experienced amazing love. And then ask these questions of that chakra. And I wonder what that would look like.
I like the sound of this workbook.
We're pioneering stuff here. This is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going and asking the chakra certain questions that we will come up with.
Yes.
To help you on that journey of finding the truth in the chakra. Finding the truth in the chakra. Mm-hmm. Nice book title.
I like it. I like it.
See, I'm expanding because, I'm back to that book that I'm freaking out about. It's due in 2 weeks.
Just write the book. You're brilliant.
Write it. I'm brilliant. Thank you. Did you say I was brilliant?
I said you were brilliant.
Wow, that is so nice. Thank you very much. And I think that our team is brilliant. I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes here at the end talking about, we're 8 now. We've gone through lots of
There's
stuff,
8
right?
of us, and we have gone through so much.
I mean, we've gained and lost and moved and destroyed and dissundered. This is not like an organization that you have in most corporate America.
In a sense, yeah.
We have the organization, but we also have the learning. that everybody's doing. Everybody's in my inner circle program.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's the, getting to the nitty gritty of how you live your life.
Right.
We talk about the fact that we're all connected, and if one person's having money issues, that it's impacting the whole group.
Mm-hmm.
So we are the living Tantra. I mean, our group is living Tantra.
Right.
And creating these experiences to help transform other people, right? By what we're doing, living impeccably.
Well, if people are going to look to us as examples of how to live a full life, and if they're wanting to succeed to a new image of their own living, and they're looking to learn Tantra as a way to get there, we got to do our own homework.
Right. So we are living Tantra, living the Tantra, and we are role modeling what it looks like to live impeccable lives, to live aroused lives, to live lives where we step courageously into self-examination and asking the hard questions. And so this makes it can be very challenging in a week. And, we have business meetings once a month or once every Monday.
Yeah.
And from one week to another, there can be a lot of challenge that you wouldn't see in corporate America.
Right, because we're really addressing and experiencing.
And so just so that we are there, and it's not just about sex. I mean, that's just such a small part, but about business mastery, life mastery, relationship mastery. It's about impeccable life in full blown, potential.
Right.
And I'm really damned excited. That's why I'm excited all the time, right? I'll start off, I'm excited. That's why I'm excited, because we are just doing such amazing work between the videos and the products that we're getting done, and this book that's coming out, which is the ABCs of Tantric Living.
ABCs of Tantric Living. Can
Right.
you tell me more about that?
It's a format, kind of like Chicken Soup for the Soul and all those.
Okay.
This wonderful woman has created these book formats. And she's asked me to write, and the one that I came up with, of course, is the ABCs of Tantric Living. And,
excellent.
Yeah, and I'm pretty excited about it because A through Z, each letter of A is arousal, and Z is very controversial because Z is. No, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to read the book. And I know I almost had you there, didn't I?
That's okay. I turned to the back page.
Very exciting. And I'm having my students and my team members write quotes and testimonials. And so you guys are all going to be through the book too, because I want people to really understand, what's the power behind learningtantra.com? Who are these people? The bios are going to go up next month. End of next month, we're going to have everybody's bio up there. So you'll be able to finally see, who is the managing director? Who's the chief financial officer? We got cool titles up there, the CEO and that, what do you do for learningtantra.com?
I'm a lead educator.
Right. What are you educating?
Educating, relationship,
right,
intimacy.
Yep. And you can bring that? I'm teasing him right now.
If we could have some people calling with some testimonials.
There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Well, you just experienced, last night that there was...
I had an experience last night.
An intense processing at Team Tantra.
There was.
And
a warrior face-off.
How did you feel about my end of the dialogue?
Very good. I was impressed. I think you did a great job there. Of authenticity, that we don't see those levels of authenticity very often in the world today.
I mean, me and this other person were furious with each other.
It was a warrior face-off.
And we were intense. And... my presentation was, I have no armor. My heart is right here, and I will answer every question in brutal honesty. Bring it.
And at the end, they stood up, clapped shoulders. Hey, my brother, let's go to the kitchen and find food. And, you don't see intensity like that in the world today, and then people being able to let go and walk away and be in
the olden days where men could punch each other in the face and then buy a beer.
Right. I mean, it was kind of like that. It was pretty epic
but
like
we didn't.
That.
There was no physical.
No, there was no physical
violence.
Right, exactly. So, Team Tantra, bringing it to you in all sorts of areas. So you guys out there and all those wonderful, beautiful people that are listening to me, I want you to just... send all your great vibes to me for this book.
This book
that will be done. The book that will be done.
It's positively
I would like the Dalai Lama to write me a testimonial. I'm putting it out there. I would like the Dalai Lama to write me a testimonial for my book.
So if anybody out there has...
Anybody out there knows the Dolly well, then, and, I could send him a copy and he could check it out. And if he liked it, that's, I'm looking for a quote on the front cover or a testimonial from the Dolly himself.
Right.
All right, we are out of here, and thank you so very much for listening and sending those emails that tell me that you get so much out of this experience, and we do too, because every time we do it, we're learning something about each other, and we didn't have to learn anything about Josh today that we didn't want to hear, so that was probably good. All right, we'll be here next week.
Have a great week.
Bye, everybody.